Hello guys, and welcome back to HJW Gaming. Now, during my season so far, I've given you a lot of season update videos, but haven't actually ran through in detail any of the wars that we've kind of gone through along the way. And on my last season review, I detailed that we were kind of gathered at a crossing between Gap of Rohan and Fangorn, and that we're about to go to war with the mixed fellowship of Burn and Time. So I figured, why not just kind of seize the moment and capture some videos of our war with Burn and Time, and yeah, give you guys a little bit more of a showcase of the war that kind of went ahead. So as you can see here, on this crossing between the Gap of Rohan and Fangorn, there was a stack of enemy commanders. I think there was approximately 60 or 70 at one point, and we've basically decided at this point that we're going to push the stack and try and blow up this stack. You can see how many commanders are kind of flowing out of there as we all hit it. I think we had 70 or 80 commanders stacked ourselves ready to go. We see we're also hitting personally with quite a few, such as Witch King, Elrond here. We hit with basically everything we've got to try and break this stack, to basically remove that threat that they could decide to push into Fangorn, where we have a lot of our keeps kind of sat ready and waiting, and so we don't want to lose our foothold in this server. Additionally, we've had some troubles in this server with Burn repeatedly pushing us, so we wanted to make sure we got them out the way and kind of removed as soon as possible. So you can just see quite how many commanders are flowing out of here, which is just really great to see. Stack of about 70 odd coming down to, what's that, to 10 or 15 now. If I slowly skip ahead, you'll see just how, just quickly do some reinforcing, you can see how many are coming down. So there's less than 10 armies there now. If we look through some of the battle reports, I was hitting myself with a second account as well, so we do get some hits with Witch King, who takes out Gil-galad, also draws with a Gandalf the Grey, which I'm not too unhappy about, as Gandalf the Grey is of course Witch King's counter. We get a great report here with Sunind hitting a Radagast, which is a good matchup for me, given that Radagast is primarily healing. The amount of damage Sunind does, Radagast is unable to heal quick enough. And then we get a great follow-up as well, taking out a Gandalf the White, which is almost full strength. But then unfortunately we do get taken down by this Dwalin. Fantastic Dwalin with all gold gear. And then also Gorbag follows up. My Gorbag isn't the best, but he's decent enough, and he does take out this Gimli before losing out to a, I believe it was an Isildur. You can just see here, now we've pushed it, that they've done well, to be fair, to re-establish the kind of guard cycle they had up. So originally the problem that Burn had was that they had a weak point in their guard. So normally when you guard cycle, what you'll do is you'll take a big tile like they have, and then you'll establish a guard ring around the outside by capturing all the 1 power tiles or all the other tiles linked to the big tile. The problem that Burn had is that they had one of the tiles around the ring was taken, I believe, by IRSS. So that meant that the Burn Fellowship couldn't actually guard that one tile. So when we decided to push, we immediately pushed and took that one tile, which then gave us direct access to hit the centre tile. So the benefit of this is that when you guard cycle, obviously because you're guarding the outer tiles, when you get hit, you can remove your guard and you won't get hit again, meaning you can reinforce safely from the middle of the tile and not risk losing more of your troops on the commander. So being able to break into that guard and hit the centre tile means you can take out their commanders, completely zero them, and start that 15-minute countdown where they then can't be used again. So it prevents your opponents from reinforcing, basically. So meeting that, finding that weakness and getting that hit really helped to get that 70 commander guard down as quickly as possible. Now the opponents did well to re-establish the guard, but unfortunately at that point they only had kind of 10-15 commanders on the tile, so it was fairly simple work for us to hit then just straight into the guards and break through the remaining guards to then hit back on the centre tile and wipe it out. You can see here there's some fantastic reports our team have been getting. Bean's been getting some great ones with his Isildur. Great report here from Aragorn here, hitting with his Gil-galad on a Gimli. Unfortunate report here for Hollow Soul, who has possibly one of the best Sunins I've ever seen. You'll see it here, look, against this Elrond, which is a good Elrond, fully refined purple gear, you know, very strong gear. But yeah, Hollow Sunin is something to behold. The fact that he was taken down by only 2 commanders is quite impressive. This Elrond is using Bow Knights and unupgraded Bow Knights, which I wouldn't really recommend. I'm not a fan of Bow Knights on Elrond. Particularly not unupgraded, but here you see Hollow's Sunind here and how it absolutely pasted this Elrond. Fantastic Sunind. If we keep scrolling through and showing some more reports, we did get caught out by this Faramir, which is a very, very strong Faramir as well. Good gigantic hammer with Frenzy, interestingly. I'd probably use Rend more on Faramir, but a fully upgraded unique as well definitely helped get that early round damage in and prevent Sunind from getting too many stacks of Feint, for example, to deal high damage. We had a good report here against Chaos Knight, which is actually a little bit disappointing to come up against him, as he is a former home player who moved over at the start of the season when we were losing to IRSS, so that's quite a satisfying report to get the victory there. We also have Bean's Sunind, which isn't quite as good as Hollow's, but still very strong Sunind, fully refined purple and some good strong gold gear, coming up against this Galadriel with lots of fully strengthened gold gear. Obviously not full army, so he does get a good report here. But with a slightly weakened army himself, he does come up against this Theoden here, running 3 different tier 4 units, and absolutely zeroes it out, losing less than half his army, which is pretty insane. That's an incredibly expensive report. To replenish 1350 marshals, which I imagine were probably gotten with the conscripting kind of ring skill, but still, to get that many swans and chariots back is going to be very, very expensive. So that's a great report there from Bean. And he continues to take out quite a few other commanders with him. You can see his Gil-galad is very, very strong, comparable to Hollow's Sunind potentially, with a lot of fully strengthened and refined gold gear. And he gets some great reports here, taking out this Thorin and then drawing also with a very, very strong Galadriel. And similarly, he has a very strong Dwalin as well here, zeroing this Gandalf the Grey without losing many troops. Fully refined cleave axe, absolutely brilliant. Does well again against this Elrond, which has very strong gear. I'm very envious of this Elrond. I'm a huge fan of Elrond. And I believe this is from one of my subscribers here. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, but this is Cletion, who was the former leader of Time before he moved over to Burn, and his Elrond is absolutely fantastic, so shout out to him. Again, using Bow Knights, which I probably would rather use Keepers personally, but potentially haven't gone for those in their employment hall. But yeah, Bean's Dwalin here with fully refined cleave axe, you know, very, very strong weapon, second only to the Frenzy hammer, but gets some brilliant reports. Arutha here too with his Witch King, running Might of Soldiers Reckoning. You know, it's not fully strengthened gear, but it's you know, a fair amount of refines on a lot of this, so it does very well. Coming up against this Galadriel, he doesn't have a tactical mark Palantir, but in this case, Might of Soldiers actually is an advantage for him, and comes up against this Galadriel. And assuming the Galadriel's not high respect, probably doesn't have high alert, so he got absolutely massacred by the burn damage from this Witch King, which interestingly he wasn't using. He's running high alert, which is interesting. So still got massacred, which I'm quite surprised about. You can see very strong gold gear. Yeah, high alert on here as well. Potentially just not enough burn damage reduction, considering the number of alchemists and the drummers involved as well, upping the damage. We have Frankel here running his Dwalin as well, which is very interesting. He's using tier 2 units here, which I don't see very often. Potentially just to get as many dwarves in as possible, but evidently it's not hindering him at all, as he gets a victory against this Theoden and also the Thorin as well, before eventually being taken down by this brilliant Gil-galad set up from Hero Fox. Very, very strong there, a lot of gold gear. Franks as well also uses Aragorn King of Men, as you can see there. I'm a big fan of his King of Men. I love seeing it work. I love seeing a good Aragorn King of Men. Using a last resort cask, which is I definitely recommend. Ups that damage after round 6, which synergizes well with his skill, and does well against this Eowyn as well, which is a very strong Eowyn. I continue skipping through quite a few of these. A lot of reports here. We've kind of got. You see, we've got Gandalf, got one here, Gandalf the White using Spirits of the Wood, which are interesting to see again from Frank's. Spirits of the Wood, of course, are ranged units that deal focus damage, but unfortunately does get taken out by this Theoden. Got quite a few bits here, but if we keep scrolling through, any other interesting ones, we do have this here from Admiral Rain, which is his Boromir taking out a Gimli, and I love his Boromir here. Utilising the fully refined Horn of Gondor, so giving his units after round 6 a huge amount of damage boost. Though it's not a massive advantage in non-roleplay, where of course you do a lot of damage with Reapers. And I got to give a shout out here using her Merry and Pippin. She's absolutely obsessed. I think the Merry and Pippin is respect 17 here. You can see there's a huge amount of skill points put in. And Merry and Pippin do have some decent skills, like Fanaticism, like Palantir Scryer, similar skills that make Saruman a good commander, and also, of course, some skills that do give advantages to men units as well, and a lot of healing. But this build here, running obviously the standard kind of non-roleplay build of Swans, Alchemists, and Drummers, but it does take out this Gil-galad here after already fighting this Theoden, admittedly weakened, but still 84 chariots. And getting a 2-commander hit with Merry and Pippin does make me chuckle somewhat. You can see quite a lot of our team have fallen back to the crossing for now, which is where we were gathered, kind of guarding, just while we all reinforce, and then we'll come and split this crossing open in a second. Okay, now we've skipped on somewhat. So this is just after that battle you just saw around the crossing, where we've broken the enemy forces and they've been forced to fall back. So what we've done since then is we've kind of swept through the lands, as you can see, using a lot of tilers to kind of clean up the lands as much as possible. The only areas we haven't really been able to fully clean is this area here, where there's a small kind of bottleneck choke point between the two kind of river streams, and you can see that we're gathering up here again with nearly 100 commanders ready, just sitting at the choke point, kind of ready to strike, and more flowing in. We keep cleaning this up. Obviously they keep moving tilers out, that's why you can see a lot of red tiles. They keep kind of breaking out with tilers and taking those before we can clean it up. But they've also gathered a lot of commanders here. You can see stacked in the middle, there's nearly 50 commanders at the choke point, but there's also 3 to 4 commanders sat in all of the forts all around, so it's going to take a huge hit in order to take it out. We've got a lot of our commanders here, and we do also have a couple of kind of either dummy or tiler commanders sitting around. We are going to build Gothmog out a little bit for some siege, however we are low on troops, so I don't actually want to give him alchemists, as we kind of need those for Witch King. So I'm going to give him kind of excess troops that I've got here, like some Reapers and Guardians. But you see we do have Elrond here and a few other commanders, just kind of sat waiting for our strike. So if I forward a little bit, you see here we're going to start moving now, and we're going to start moving towards the enemy choke point, and you can see the huge wave of armies coming out here. Thankfully we've been able to stack pretty close. It's only kind of a 1-2 minute march. So now we're all going at the same time to try and hit this choke point. Unfortunately there's no weak point here, so we aren't able to just break through the guard like we were last time and hit straight into the armies. So we are going to have to hit directly onto the guard. And hopefully though, with so many armies marching, we'll be able to break through the guard and hit directly onto the armies regardless, because we should hit with enough overwhelming force to get through the number of guards. You can see there's still I think there's still about 50 armies sat on the tile, so we haven't had kind of full engagement. There'll be some people who are always late to the party naturally. But there'll be a lot of armies, I imagine, similar to mine, where there's kind of siege armies sat waiting as well for when we get onto the forts. Now if I kind of slowly skip through this, you'll see how many armies are marching, which is pretty crazy. All of those times, look. And then we kind of get to our reports of when our armies have hit. So we have this report of a kind of a draw between Grima and Gandalf the Grey. We did also then take a victory with Elrond hitting that Grima, but then immediately got wiped by Gandalf the White. And there's going to be kind of a lot of this where you get a victory and then a loss straight after. That's kind of the nature of how a lot of these draws work. You'll see here we have now broken through the guard. We do have a tile directly bordering the opposition stack tile, where there's 43 armies. So what we're going to do is kind of heal up as quickly as we can, get as many troops in as we can. We're still a little bit low, as I said, from hitting that stack earlier on in the day, but we are going to fully heal up and then go back and try and hit some of those stacked armies there. We can see 43 armies, and we'll see they'll start to come down pretty quickly. So if I actually just speed again through this a little bit, you'll see just kind of reinforcing my troops. You can see how many commanders are moving in that area, and when they hit, just the wave of red arrows that come out from that tile as we kind of hit the half armies, already down to 30 armies there, and they just continue hitting over and over until we break through. The opposition do have the advantage, of course, that their settlements are 4 or 5 tiles away from this stack, so they can kind of reinforce in 10 to 15 seconds, whereas ours probably take 5 or 6 minutes at kind of a minimum. We do get some good reports in here. We do have this Legolas from CS Hero. Don't see Legolas used very often, so it's good to see some fun reports with him. Obviously a very good commander in early seasons because he can be very usable with low respect, but yeah, less seen in later seasons where he's kind of, due to his respect, hitting something of a kind of a choke point once he gets beyond, I think it's about R7, R8 maybe, and there's not a huge amount of bonus beneficial skills from then on. You can see there's a lot of victories coming in here. Bean again hitting a lot of strong enemies and getting a lot of good victories. Judging from these reports, we're going net positive in the majority of these, which is good to see. There's some odd troop combinations here. You will have seen that Gandalf the Grey there had Ravagers on it, which is an interesting decision. The armies down on this tile are down to 12, so we're almost broken through this tile now. Personally, we're still waiting for a lot of reinforces, so we're just kind of sitting, watching, seeing what happens here until our troops are reinforced. We can see the armies coming down to 7, 6. We did also hit with kind of a second account as well, as we've done previously. And you can see some of our reports here. So we hit first with Gorbag, which hit this Aragorn King of Men from a fellow YouTuber. If you haven't watched him before, EJUBU, Ejubu, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but if you haven't watched him before, please give it a check out. He's a good YouTuber. And we do get the victory, kind of a good draw with that Gorbag, and then a victory with Witch King. And then we hit his Dwalin with our Witch King, unfortunately, and Dwalin, of course, has strong fire resistance in his Respect 5 skill tree and the armour to prove it as well. So we do take the loss there. We then hit his Gil-galad as well with Sunind, which we took out, and then we also took out Faramir with the remainder of our Sunind army, which just about clung on before being defeated eventually by his Gandalf the Grey. But we took out a lot of very strong commanders there. With strong commanders of our own, we did well there. I think that was 3 different commanders, took out 4 armies, I think, 4 or 5 very, very strong armies. So yeah, we did well there, and if you haven't checked him out, give him a check out. He's more than worth the watch. So as you see here, we've now taken out that stacks, and as a case of trying to clear through as many of these forts as possible, being careful to only hit, of course, with siege armies, the forts that are empty. And a lot of these forts could be empty 1 minute and then reinforced a minute later due to the nature of how close the enemy keeps are. So whilst we're clearing these forts, we also have to keep an eye on the location of the enemy fortresses and trying to uproot as many as possible to get them off the front line so that we can continue progressing through. So if I give you something of a time lapse here, you can see what's kind of going on. Everyone's very keen to try and get as much prestige as possible and try and take out as many remaining enemies as possible. So you can see that blue the blue wave coming out, slowly spreading out from that range, moving towards the enemy keeps and just clearing as many forts as possible. To be honest, once we've taken out that primary stack, they're of course going to be a little bit low on troops likely. All their armies are going to be zeroed and during that 15-minute cooldown before they can be utilised again, which is why it's so important to try and get as many uproots as possible, because if we don't uproot them during that 15 minutes, they can then bring those armies back into the fray, which will make things significantly more difficult. So we want to try and uproot these players before they can bring their armies back into force. So as we show through, is we're trying to get hits on the enemy keeps, seeing if we can get any uproots. We did get some reports there as we hit the enemy commanders. Of course, we're going to take a couple of losses here. We are running a little bit low on troops, as we saw previously. But on this player's keep, we do get a good report with our Dwalin against this King of Men. That's a good matchup for me there, as Dwalin, of course, doesn't activate Aragon King of Men's Respect 5 skill. We get a fantastic report with our Witch King against a Gil Galad. He does get 7 reports here, but I've just realised they're all empty armies, so it's a bit of a waste of time sharing these. I didn't really pay attention at the time. But the report against the Gil Galad at the beginning was brilliant, as we zeroed the Gil Galad for very little loss. Though we did have a bit of a mixed report there against that Dane Ironfoot, who was then dispatched by our Gandalf the Grey, and then we finally got zeroed by this Dwalin, which is a fantastic Dwalin build, and actually using some tier 4s as well. But this is the Gil Galad report I was kind of talking about. It's obviously not the most, the most powerful Gil Galad in the world, but still good, strong, refined purple gear primarily. And we did get a good 0 on that. And this is again King of Men. His R5 skill only activates if you inflict stun or madness, so that's why it's a good matchup for our Dwalin. As of course Dwalin doesn't inflict either of those things, so it's a very, very good matchup. And we duly got the report there. Kind of, I think if we'd used Witch King, we maybe potentially would have lost that as well. So now you can see we've got quite a few of our commanders actually during the same kind of cooldown there. So we've got to be a little bit careful with what we're using. We are running low on troops as well. We can put out one kind of force with our Elrond here. We don't really have anything left for Witch King, really. We've got no drummers left anyway. Just seeing if we have any kind of alternatives kicking round. We might be able to heal up or conscript some alchemists soon, but for now it's not worth sending him out with only half an army. You can see here just how wild this is. Just burning everywhere. I've cleared all of this out, which is nice. I do actually have my my daily kind of scroll challenges here, which of course I'm not going to waste the troops on for now. But yeah, it's absolutely wild over here. You can see the opponents are actually trying to kind of break back in a few areas, but we're continuing to progress through the enemy forts. Reinforce a few troops here. I do actually decide to potentially use a few non-ideal troop combinations, but just to kind of get some armies into the into the barracks. Just even if they work for just siege or anything like that, I do decide to use the conversion ring skill, which for anyone who hasn't played King of Men, basically you can spend 10 ring points to convert a mob's army into your personal barracks. So I do it twice there, which will give me 2,500 marshals and 2,500 sharpshooters, as well as I think about 5,000 Dunedains. So that'll be useful for my Isildur, and I can also chuck them on something like Gandalf the Grey, who can use pretty universal troop compositions. So I can just, even if they don't win too many battles with that troop combination, and reasonably unupgraded troops as well, as I don't have the gold because I've been spending it all on keepers, I can still use them for, if anything, just sieging forts and doing what I can to help people out. Yeah, we're continuing to kind of spread from this area at the moment. You can see Dwalin running very low on troops. We don't have a lot of alternatives here. I realised kind of a little bit too late that I've left a bunch of Guardians sat on Gothmog, so I actually chucked Dunedains here just to be used as a tank unit on Dwalin. And I kind of realised last second that my Gothmog had a bunch of Guardians, although he's since been siege sniped, I believe. So we're going to just convert a third martial mob here to get a few more of those marshals Dunedains in. So as we kind of skip through, you can see we do have a couple of commanders into the fray. If we look around, you can see we're starting to now hit enemy keeps. There's a lot of them here. They're obviously all backed up. You do have some very strong players in here, as I previously mentioned, like Clishan, the leader of time. We saw Ratgondin there with his very strong Dane and Dwalin, of course, still on the front line. And you see the 200 bordering his keep is actually being attacked back by opponent's troops. So they are trying to hold us back still and trying to stop us from getting in too many uproots. But we're doing what we can to continue kind of progressing the momentum. So as you can see here, I think it was Cletion actually who attacked this 200, and he does do very well to do so. You can see there's a lot of players still kind of fighting, battling round. Yeah, it was Cletion who fought on this tile, which, as I said, he's previous time leader. Shout out to him, very, very strong player, as I said. I'm a huge fan of his Elrond. Would love to try kind of like the keeper build with his gear. Definitely superior gear to me, as I'm lacking the Aegis helm, which I'm very envious of, as Elrond has a huge susceptibility to madness, particularly when running that keeper build, because if you get madness on the keepers, they do massacre their own army. But yeah, you can see we're just trying to get a foothold in here. I'll continue kind of time-lapsing through. We do eventually capture some of that back and start moving towards some of the relocates. And one of the things we need to be kind of acutely aware of is that there is a opposing fortress. You can see where this, just past Ragondin's keep, there is actually kind of, you can loop round by the stream, and at the far end of that there is an enemy fortress. So we do need to try and make our way towards the enemy fortress if we can, in order to clear out so that we can stop the opponents from coming back, because as long as the fortress is there, they can easily come back using the fortress and just relocate straight back. You can see here, so Ragondin's Dane actually has come back into the fray, as that 15 minutes timer has expired. However, we did manage to get a hit on it with our excuse me, with our Sunind, which took that out. However, we then unfortunately hit with Gothmog's Siege, which, and I didn't really think about it, but of course, if his Dane has come back into the fray, then so will all his other commanders, which means that his Gandalf the Grey also has troops. So when our Gothmog hit, unfortunately he had put troops back on his Gandalf the Grey, so our siege got sniped once again, and we lose that lovely 2,500 marshals that we just used so many ring points on to get into the barracks, which is unfortunate, but of course not the end of the world. But with so many players piling in, it'll be kind of a case of if and not when this relocate happens. But we are having some trouble. As we skip through, you can see there's a lot of people kind of moving, and we're now trying to look towards getting round this little stream area, as I mentioned, to try and get up towards that that fortress. So we're now all moving in that direction. Got a few of our keeps. You can see we're using like kind of non-ideal troop compositions here. We got the remainder of our swans, just with some reapers and things chucked in. Yeah, we're doing well here, just kind of moving this western path to try and get an area to move into. Do we get some more? We do get a couple more hits here, PvP, so we do get some with our Elrond. He hits this fortress here, and I love showing off Elrond, as I'm a huge, he's my favourite commander. I did previously have a lot of troubles with him at the start of the season, but since we switched to this keeper build, and I shout out like Ray and Lord Sithis and Spec here, and Sexy Omen as well, for giving me kind of the build that they used using these keepers, and it is absolutely magnificent. You can see here we got a great report on this King of Men, losing kind of 70k of our army. You know, we're not running the best gear in the world. It's 5-star strength and gold in a couple of places, but not refined. We do get a great report. Again, Elrond's a pretty good counter for King of Men, as he doesn't inflict any kind of stuns or madness. But yeah, we're going to try and make our way basically over to see if we can take out that enemy fortress, and if there's anything we can do to make moves up in this western area. Now I've skipped on a little bit, potentially I've skipped on a little bit far, but you can see we've progressed down that kind of stream area, and we're now approaching the enemy fortress that I had earlier mentioned. And you can see there's still 25 armies sat in that fortress. What we're doing for now is we're trying to stack armies around, and as soon as we take out that fortress, I think that'll likely be the war won, as the opponents, of course, getting uprooted on the eastern side of the choke point, as you saw earlier, and then on the west side, losing the fortress will reduce their capability to be able to come back in this area. Ideally, of course, we would take the area in general, to take control of the area. We try and seek that as soon as possible in order to prevent enemy control and enemy relocation. However, we are aware that the area is actually, the control point is Edoras, and that's currently actually being scoped out by 2 other teams, Dino and Chaos, who are looking to take that for their 3rd control point. But I'll cover that in a season review, my end of season review actually, which has a lot of changes from where we were last time. So yeah, you guys are definitely look out for that one coming up. Yeah, you can see here we do have the fortress now available that we've stacked in, and everyone just piling straight into the fortress. When you get to this kind of stage of the season, everyone just wants that prestige, everyone wants to get first hit, and fortresses often can contain weak armies, so everyone kind of wants a bit of it. But unfortunately for us, definitely not a weak army here. We hit a lovely Gil-galad, which with our Elrond is always frustrating, as we still do not have the tactical mark necklace, and we won't be picking that up. Won't be picking up this season, obviously, either, as we won't be getting the title necessary to pick that up. We do. We have the, I think it's the anti-cavalry buff, something like that. It's pretty useless, but we previously had Blitz, but you can't use Blitz on Elrond as it messes up the activation of Convener. So hitting Gil-galads isn't the best for my Elrond, unless I switch maybe to a Harp. We do get a good report here with our Sunind hitting against an opponent's Dwalin here, so we do take out the opponent's Dwalin, which is very useful. Not sure what this message is, so we'll skip over it just in case. You can see just the enemies piling in on the enemy fortress, so which kind of, when this gets taken down, will kind of mark the end of the war of the opponent. This will be victory, and you can see just how many enemy troops come swooping out of there once we take it, and it's absolutely brilliant. So that's 25 armies taken out of there. You know, you saw there was about 70 or 80 in the stack at the beginning, another 60 or 70 taken out at the crossing. So we have been able to get a good victory here, and you can see as we kind of go along from here, everyone just continues. If we show a summary of where we are, so taking this over here, if we scroll around, there's still a lot of relocates to be had. There's a lot of keeps still kicking around. Over this eastern side, you can see there's still a lot of keeps very active, particularly this Berserk player. A lot of players are trying to protect him. There's still a few forts as well where the opposition are kind of stacking and stopping, but around the choke point we have definitely achieved victory here, which is good to see. It's likely that we'll have to kind of stack and hold for a moment, as of course a lot of people have used a lot of stamina and a lot of troops. So if we just stack up, hold our position, we can then seek to continue going from there, as we do take a big old L here from this King of Men. And this is what I was saying earlier, with the R5 skill, Great King, is it Great King? Something like that. It's the R5 skill, it reduces the opponent's damage received basically by 90% once they've received a stun at any point in the battle. And Witch King, of course, inflicting a round 1 stun means that 90% comes straight into play for all 10 rounds, which makes King of Men a fantastic Witch King counter, basically. So if we'd hit that with Elrond or Dwalin, we probably would have won in that case, but Witch King is possibly the worst matchup we could have had, especially with the anti-burn chest as well. We do come in with a Seal Door as well, not a little bit after. I'm not sure if we hit anything major, but you can see the opponent's just kind of moving around. We're all just kind of trying to relocate and take out as many forts as possible. Not a huge amount worth showing. But yeah, I think that should summarise basically where our war with Burn went to. Hopefully that's given you a good insight into kind of the, I would say battle tactics, but there weren't really any. We just kind of piled in, other than the kind of tactics of how to break the guard cycle I spoke about earlier on. But yeah, as I hadn't shown any kind of major war footage from home all season, I've just been kind of doing overall map reviews and things like that. I thought it'd be good to kind of show us in action a little bit. I've spoken over how at the start of the season we had a few, we had some struggles. We had some struggles with player activity and generally just kind of slow leveling and production gain at the beginning compared to some of the other fellowships here, which led to our earlier troubles and losses in some of our early wars. But now that we've kind of picked ourselves back up, we got our capital back as a kingdom between us and Drum, and in general we've just started finally pulling our weight, and I think a lot of people saw us as easy targets, and since then we've kind of pulled our weight a lot better and shown people what we can do, which is great to see. And hopefully in the server we've at least earned some friends and some good respect amongst the people, but yeah, we'll let that play out and decide. With that, that's going to be the end of me. I really hope all of you have enjoyed this video. If you found it entertaining, please click a like and please consider hitting subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It makes a massive difference to me and to my channel. And with that, I really hope to see you on the next one.